Hosting. Okay, great. We're back online. We're back online, and we really appreciate everybody for bearing with us. I know we've got not quite all the viewers, but I'm sure they'll peel on as they come. Mr. Attorney General, we appreciate you bearing with us, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to visit with us. We'll let you just go ahead and get started and talk to us, and then we'll do questions with as much time as you have left. I'll go ahead and admit to everybody that you had a jammed day today. So we'll get you as long as we can get you, and we're appreciative.
Well, I'll try to talk shorter than I might normally, but a lawyer and a politician, that can be challenging itself. But I appreciate you all working your way through this technology and everybody joining us today. I'm running for governor. I'd like the vote of each person on here. I'm somebody who came up through Virginia education, and I'm a UVA engineer. And went to George Mason for law school and a master's degree. And I married a lady from James Madison who really also lived 3 doors down from me, which was also convenient. But I burned up I-64 that last year of our time in college, and we got married right out of school. And I worked for a year before I went back to school for my law degree. And then when I was getting my master's, it was while I was working. So I've done a few different things with my education experience, and I also have family members who went to ODU and VMI. So we're kind of Virginia'd up, and I'm raising 7 kids now in Virginia with my wife in Northern Virginia. We live in Prince William County, and education is very important to us, both K through 12 and higher ed. I know you all are most interested in higher ed, and when I was there in college at UVA, one of the great things there is the student government, which is how I got my interest in law, and it's also an area I started doing some activities of my own. Started a sexual assault prevention group there called SAFE. It's still there and functioning, and when I went home to Northern Virginia, coached a basketball team in the league I grew up in, and then in law school, worked in the homeless shelter one winter in Arlington, the homeless shelter's down there by the courthouse, did the overnight shift. And then when I got my feet under me as a lawyer, I worked on juvenile justice prevention, delinquency prevention, and also working with people suffering from mental illness. And that's been a real passion for me ever since then. For more than a decade and a half, whether it was in the private sector and doing things in my community, or whether it was in the state senate or as attorney general, and if I'm fortunate enough to win this year as governor, I believe we still have a lot of work to do in the mental health area. And these are all things that I started working on in my community before I ever ran for office. I think that's an important distinction. I made a lifetime of putting Virginians first, and I intend to continue to do that. Early in my adult life, that meant working in my community. And later on, it also included serving in the state senate, where I represented part of Fairfax County for part of 3 terms. And then won the Attorney General's race. And of course, in my role as Attorney General, I'm the lawyer for all of your universities, which is a learning experience unto itself. And I've had a number of different experiences just in that capacity. One of the things I think that I have that's somewhat unique is that I'm a patent lawyer, among other things. And so working on intellectual property and helping our universities more efficiently and effectively participate in generating those opportunities, and working with the private sector, both for economic benefits, but also to create job opportunity benefits for our students. Those are things I've done in the AG's office. So I look forward to y'all's questions. Would appreciate y'all's vote for governor. We're certainly focusing on job creation and job growth, which is something that I got to assume that anybody who's looking nearly forward to coming out of college is focused very keenly on. And in y'all's age group, we tend to have the highest unemployment rate, and so it's particularly important, particularly when you consider things like student debt, that immediately you have to start taking care of. And I've carried that kind of debt myself and paid it off myself, and done those sorts of things too. So appreciate the chance to be with you. I'm sorry our time got a little bit shortened here, but I'm glad that it worked.
Great. Well, thanks. Well, we appreciate all that, and we appreciate your focus. The first question we're going to go to, I think, is a real question in higher education right now, and we're going to go ahead and go to Karen from JMU.
Uh, Mr. Attorney General, Virginia politicians on both sides of the aisle often argue that institutions of higher education need to be more efficient with their money and keep tuition increases to a minimum. This has led to increased class sizes, risen professor salaries, and increased reliance on part-time faculty versus full-time. Efficiently using resources and low tuition increases are definitely a good thing. We worry, however, that if we pursue those two goals at the expense of quality, we won't get a good education. Our goal, above all else, is to be successful and competitive in graduate school and in the job market. As governor, how will you pursue efficiency while keeping quality a top priority?
A great question, thank you. I think, first of all, it's an important subject area because, you know, as a parent, my oldest is in college, and I've been through the sticker shock, and it is shocking, of prices for universities, and we're pricing middle-class families out of the ability to fund higher education, and we cannot sustain the price rising so much faster than inflation as we have literally for decades in Virginia, and we're not unique, that this is a problem across the country. And when we talk about efficiency, I think you tie it in very correctly with the goal of trying to keep tuition affordable. If you look back over 5, 10, 20 years, I think what you'll find is that the increase in staff, and I'll set athletics and so forth aside for the moment, that's kind of a separate discussion, not an important one, but a little bit separate, that there's been an increase in the non-teaching side of school budgets, and that's been a lot faster. I see some schools try to economize by using more TAs and GAs, and I really think the first goal of our universities is teaching. And so where I want to see our professors is in classes with students, and I, frankly, as a parent, much more than just a policymaker, that's an expectation that I have. And I know that my oldest daughter has that expectation, and I did when I was at UVA also. And I was in classes that were big enough that you needed a graduate assistant to guide smaller discussion groups, and I was in smaller classes as well. So I've had the variety. When it comes to higher ed, I think it is important for us to focus particularly on gaining efficiency outside of the teaching ranks, outside of the teaching costs, but I also think it's important as a governor, which is what we're talking about, that we not invade too directly the nitty-gritty of every university's budget. We have boards of visitors who are the on-site board of directors, if you will, and I think that one of the most important things a governor does is very seriously appoint good people who are capable of managing and leading complex, large organizations like a university while maintaining their core missions. And they're the ones who I expect, with your faculty, not the faculty so much as the staff and the administration, to formulate budgets that preserve teaching opportunities while carving down the non-teaching parts of the budget that have been ballooning in the last, really, it's been a long time. It isn't just the last few years. Because we can't sustain tuition increases forever into the future that are so far beyond the growth of family budgets and wages as well, all while we try to set up a situation where people can plug in to job opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
All right, next question. We should go to, since I think it's one of the important things that you just brought up. Let's go to Brendan Nguyen.
Hi, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you for taking my question. I'm a student at the University of Virginia, and so I understand that one of the biggest impacts you're going to have on the state's colleges are who you appoint to these boards. Obviously, this is a concern of ours after the events of last summer, but it's a growing concern across the entire Commonwealth. And so my question to you is, what sorts of qualities will you look for in new members of boards of visitors that will help keep education focused on quality and not just tuition?
Yeah, Terry Sullivan made a really interesting comment, I wanted to say last summer, when some of the discussion turned substantively to the question of efficiency and various majors and other things. And she said, you know, if you want to be a great university, you've got to have Latin and Greek. Latin and Greek are never going to show a significant return on investment. But if you want your universities to maintain their position as the institution of continuity in Western civilization, you've got to have things like Latin and Greek. Does that mean we don't look through, and by we I mean boards of visitors, don't look through curriculum to see where the demand is among students and where the demand is in the private sector for job opportunities after graduation? Absolutely not. But her fundamental point, where we remember that it isn't all just about return on investment, there is an institutional role in our societies that the universities play, and as long as we balance that with trying to be cost efficient, I think that's very appropriate. And the ones on a university by university basis who need to do that with the college presidents are the boards of visitors. And so to your question about the characteristics I would look for in people who I would point to boards of visitors are people with management experience, particularly of more complex organizations. They don't necessarily have to be universities or even businesses, but they've got to have an ability to contribute to digesting the budgets that the staffs of the universities bring to the boards and understanding them, one, and being able to ask meaningful and detailed questions that get at the heart of which direction a university wants to go as it relates to cost effectiveness and to maintaining the mission, much like Terry Sullivan mentioned, I want to say about a year ago. And you know, that balance is important. I am not as interested as has happened necessarily in the past in seeing passive boards of visitors. You all have seen an experience at UVA where you had a board of visitors that may have had some worthwhile strategic goals, but wasn't interacting with a lot of the rest of the university community to talk through those goals and to work toward them. And I think everybody across Virginia learned from that experience. But when we ask people to join boards of visitors, that sort of experience is going to be one we're going to touch back on. Are they prepared to interact with the rest of the university, or are they just of the mind that it should just be these 14 or 16 people that should be making these decisions? And what we want is people who are ready to collaborate with the leadership at the universities, but that bring management skills to bear so that we can achieve some of the goals of maintaining the affordability and the focus on teaching that I think our universities ought to have.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I believe we've got time for two more questions with the Attorney General. Next off, we're going to go to a more difficult issue that I know is on the mind of a lot of young voters, and we're going to go to Meg.
Hi, Mr. Attorney General.
Hello.
Thinking back to last fall in the 2012 elections, we heard a lot of folks, including members of your own national party, talking about how the Republican stance on social issues are alienating some younger voters. Specifically, the College Republican National Committee identified that the GOP stance on women's health and same-sex marriage are areas where you're losing younger voters because we care primarily about job creation in the economy. Do you think their analysis was accurate, and do you think that these social issues are ones that your party should continue to pursue?
Well, I certainly don't think either party should be all or nothing. And that's, in terms of participating with the Republican Party, I wouldn't want to put a litmus test up like that. I certainly think there is a lot of analysis after last election. I believe that you know, we were a swing state, obviously, in Virginia, so we got an awful lot of intense attention. And I think there are plenty of things to learn there. You allude to the focus on job creation, and I certainly think that that is important. I don't think it necessarily means people have to abandon other things they believe, but I'm running for governor with a focus on job creation, and I have put forward proposals about how to do that by leaving more money with families to afford things like college, and also with small businesses so they can invest in growing those jobs. I want you all out in the private sector to be deciding how that money gets invested. I'm not running for governor telling you that I have some crystal ball about what the next great industry will be. I mean, in '09, when he was running for governor, my opponent took something of this tack, and the suggestion is that he will provide tax money to chosen industries, and I don't think he has a particularly good track record with green tech and Franklin Pellets of doing that, and I don't think government has a particularly good track record of doing that, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. So I do want to keep that focus on job creation. I've put out a plan that's been rated as increasing jobs beyond current Virginia policy by about 50 or 60,000 additional jobs in the private sector. And I think the best way to go about carrying on that focus is to put out positive policies that will affect job creation. And we did that with the tax proposals. We've done it with the energy proposals we've put out in workforce development, which includes our universities, our community colleges, which are some of the best value in higher education you can get, and K through 12, especially high school, and then in parts of Virginia where we've got people in transition economically. So the workforce development pieces are important to that as well, and of course there are other fundamental blocks, but those are the ones that focus on job creation and that we can control here within our state universe. You know, there's a lot going on in Washington, but we can't control that in state government. Sometimes we need to push back on it, and I've done that on occasion, but we also need to be formulating our own positive vision, putting it before the people of Virginia, which I'm doing in this campaign, because what I'd like to see if I win is that the people of Virginia haven't just picked Ken Cuccinelli. They've said, yes, we want to see this kind of job creation approach. Yes, we want to see this approach to energy. Yes, we want to see this sort of consolidation and focus on workforce development and education, so that I come in with a mandate to pursue a positive vision. So I do think that that approach is one that a lot of Republicans are trying to emphasize, and they're realigning some of their thinking to do that. One thing you have with me in this race that you don't have with my opponent is I have 4 previous elections, and you can look back at those elections and see that in my 3 Senate races and my 1 for Attorney General, that what I ran on is what I pursued. What you see is what you get, and so what you see in this campaign will tell you what you would see if I actually win the governor's race. So thank you for your question.
All right. Thank you for that. It looks like we've got time for one more quick question, as long as we make it quick, if that's okay with you, Mr. Attorney General.
Sure. I'll try to answer short.
Okay. All right. The next question we're going to go to Jordan.
Hello, Mr. Cuccinelli. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Great, great. So, so as we all know, student debt is a big issue, and as funding for higher ed has been cut in the past 10 years, debt has really skyrocketed, and it really has hurt middle-class families. Wealthier families usually have more resources to really deal with it, but really middle-class families is where the real hit is felt. Since our current governor has really worked with us in the past 4 years in trying to get more real money dedicated to higher ed, and we were just wondering, would you want to keep on going with that same progress, and what really are your goals when it comes to funding higher ed?
Sure. Well, certainly that middle class squeeze is something I'm very concerned about. I am very concerned that we not price higher education out of reach of middle class families, because I think you're right. I think wealthy families can pay for this. Poorer families are where we target our financial aid, as we should. I think that should be that focus for a lot of that money, the overwhelming portion of it, because education equals the path to opportunity, and it's an equalizer. And but if middle-class families can't afford it, we can't fund everybody to go, and so we've got to keep the price affordable. Your concern about debt is one I certainly have. You know, as a parent, one of the things my wife and I have focused on is we have 7 kids. I mean, think of the math of putting 7 kids through college, and we think about it, and I sort of break out into a sweat, and I come back to it later. But so how do you solve that problem? And there are a few pieces of it. One, part of it involves work through college, as well as what we'd like to develop as more work-study, internship style opportunities. There used to be more of these in higher ed. And I spent actually one summer working for British Gas as an intern in London. And it was almost a random opportunity I got. And one of the guys I worked with, Clive, there's no Clives anywhere except in London, and this guy took an entire year, and this was part of their educational program. They did 3 years in the classroom, and they did 1 year at work. So they were already, one, they're getting paid, not a lot, grant-minded, but some money was coming in, and B, they were getting real-world work experience, which positions them coming out of college to be immediately employable, so that they don't start getting behind right off the bat on those student loans. I mean, the last thing, it's like missing one calculus class. I was an engineer. You don't ever want to miss a calculus class, because once you're 1 day behind in calculus, you'll never catch up. You'll never catch up. And, you know, debt can be like that too. And so we really want people prepared, not so saddled with debt that they can't stay ahead of it. And that is a major concern for me. One of the areas where you'll see the most continuity between the policies you've seen under Governor McDonnell and myself is education, both K through 12 and higher ed. I think what he's done with the General Assembly the last couple of years has been very positive, and it's a direction that I would expect to continue moving in as governor if I'm fortunate enough to win. So, you know, everything won't be the same just because we're a Republican, but these are areas that you can expect to see a lot of continuity, a lot of similarity of policies. I'm sorry I can't stay longer. I'm kind of squeezed on the schedule, but I'm glad we got this up and running, and I appreciate y'all's perseverance and hanging in there for it. And I would appreciate all of your votes. And for those of you interested in joining our campaign, you can reach us at Cuccinelli.com, which is easy if you can spell Cuccinelli. So y'all have a great day. Thanks very much.
I mean, thank you so much for your time. We very much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that was very enjoyable. We're glad that we fixed the hiccups with the system. Once we get okay, he's signed off. I believe that now we're just going to wait on Mr. McAuliffe. So if you give us about maybe 2 minutes or less, we should be good to go. I just got a note that he is ready to go. I do want to apologize again one last time for you know, the difficulty in getting this off the ground. There's been, you know, Google had trouble, and when we did confirm that this you know, regardless of all the prep work and the time we spent interacting with the campaigns and all of the members that you see on the line and our tech folks, you know, we're very sorry that we fell on a bad day with Google. So we appreciate you staying in there and bearing with us. So looks like we're ready to go with Mr. McAuliffe. We really appreciate you joining us. We're sorry that we're running a little bit late. You know, as I mentioned to our viewers, this is a new for Virginia. This is the first time that gubernatorial candidates have taken questions over Google Hangout, and we worked through the technical difficulties. So very appreciative that you've got the time to spend with us, and I guess I'll turn over to you. You've got time to, you know, we will let you go ahead and make sort of like opening statements, tell us why you're running for governor, and then we'll ask you questions. So thanks so much, and the floor is yours.
Well, great, and thank you for having me. I've had a great time here. I'm at the George Mason campus. Claire has been telling me all about Virginia21, so we have been doing just fine here out at George Mason, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. As you know, I'm running for governor. I am the Democratic nominee for governor. I am running on a platform of jobs and economic development, which I know is important to everybody who is with us today, because as Claire and I were just talking about, she's just graduated, is now out looking for work, and the next governor has some real challenges in Virginia. As you know, the stimulus is over. Sequester's here for the year. There might even be a chance that they take sequestration into next year. Big defense cuts. So the next governor has to be very creative to focus on how do we grow and diversify our economy. And that's what I talk about every single day. I've been in business my whole life. I actually started my first business when I was 14 years old because I was going to have to help pay for college. I have started and invested in dozens of companies. I was chairman of a bank by the time I was 30. I took over a company out of receivership and built thousands of homes and been in all different types of renewable energy projects. You want a governor who's going to bring a broad business background, who has been in business, who's seen the ups and downs, and will bring that business experience into the office of governor to work in a bipartisan way about bringing folks together. And that's why I was pleased to work with Governor McDonald, to work to try and do what we had to do on transportation, because we cannot grow jobs unless we've got an effective transportation system. But education for me is the core. I view education as an investment, not an expense, and we need to make sure that we are preparing our students for those 21st century jobs. And that's why I'm really honored to be with Virginia21 today, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And we'll be glad to get into questions on education, on healthcare, on transportation, or whatever you're interested in.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, our first question actually comes from Karen.
Hello, Mr. McAuliffe. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Karen.
Young people are increasingly worried about picking a major, figuring out how to pay for their degree, and then finding a job once they graduate that will help them pay down their debt. We want to vote for a person that understands what we're going through as young people in a difficult economy. How did you pick your major and decide your own career path?
Well, I'd always loved government. I'd always loved politics. I figured I was always going to be a lawyer. But at a young age, I was very active. My father instilled on me at a very young age that public service is something very important for you to do. And so I decided that I was going to pursue a major in government and pre-law. I ended up going to law school. I graduated from Georgetown University. But really, business was in my veins. But I think it's important. And let me say to all the folks who are listening here today, do what you really enjoy doing in life. Take some risks while you're young. These are the times of your life. Go do what your passions tell you to do. I think it's important, obviously, that you get the requisite skills to be prepared for that 21st century. But, let your interest and your passion for life do what is going to drive you to be successful in life, to be happy. I have tried so many different things in my life. As I say, I've been in dozens of different businesses. I've tried different things. I've learned by those. You learn the ups and downs. But I've always been passionate about the things I do, the things I think, first I love to do, and I think I can really make a difference. So in picking a major, pick something that obviously is important to you, that you want to pursue for the rest of your life. Obviously get as many skills as you possibly can, but I'll just tell you, take some risks. I always tell people, don't try to plan out your career too far in advance, because a lot of things will come along that road, and if you say, well, I want to be here and I'm not going to do that, you're going to miss out many opportunities when you're young. You only live once. Go for gusto. Enjoy it to your fullest. Take chances. And guess what? When you take some chances, you're going to fail. But guess what? Get out of bed the next day. Try it again. I've always, my entire life, have kept Teddy Roosevelt's quote behind my desk. It talks about that person who is in the arena and that poor and timid soul who knows neither victory nor defeat, but the person whose face is marred with dust and sweat is in that arena. And I'm just telling everybody, get in that arena, take some big risks, take some challenges, enjoy life, and you'll be far better for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next question comes from Jaleel.
Yeah, thank you. It is to my understanding that the federal secretization has left Pell Grants untouched. Many students here at Virginia State University rely on the Pell Grant, and I'm really worried about the program will cut, the major cuts in the program will affect many of the students and cause them to drop out.
Yes.
So my question to you is, as the federal government continues to talk about the debt and deficit, what can we do to mitigate the problems in Virginia if the Pell is cut?
Well, it's an important question, and first of all, there's a lot of things that are not working today in Washington, but one thing that has worked is they have protected the Pell Grants to date through these severe budget cuts that we're facing. And we don't know what's going to happen. Most people you talk to will say on September 30, there's a high likelihood that Congress will vote to take sequestration into next year. If that happens, that's going to have a dramatic impact on Virginia. We are the #1 recipient of DOD dollars. That's why it's important, as I say, the governor needs to be working to be doing in cybersecurity and all these new 21st century jobs. But specifically, I think it's important as governor to make sure that we are every child who wants to go into higher education. I've spent a lot of time in this. If you go to my website, terrymcauliffe.com, I talk a lot about it. I've been to 21 of the 23 community colleges. I talk about higher ed. We need to make sure we're ensuring financial aid because we have to make sure that our students are getting that education, but they're not getting out of college with a lot of debt and no job. So as governor, I want to make sure you have a job when you get out. This is something I've done my entire life, and a lot of politicians talk about job creation. I can actually tell you I've done it my whole life from when I was 14 years old and going on through it in a variety of different fields. But I will ensure as governor, I promise you, that we're going to have the necessary funds that we need so that everybody can afford to go to college, and it's not such an exorbitant cost. And what I worry about for so many students today, their debt is so high that when they get out of college, they don't pursue their dreams and they don't go into the field that they really want to go into, but they have to immediately take a job in some other sector because they need money immediately to help them begin to pay down their loans. Let's make sure when our students are graduating that their debt is not so high, that we have jobs in a disparate and diverse fields so that they can really do what they really are passionate about and to do it. And I'll be honest with you, there's a big difference, I think, between the two candidates for governor. My opponent has promised a $1.4 billion tax cut per year. I'd love to sit here and promise you billions of dollars of tax cuts as well, but to promise a tax cut and not say how you're going to pay for it is fiscally irresponsible. It most likely and will come out of education. So at a time when the federal government's cutting, we cannot have the state of Virginia also cutting back on education. I view education as an investment. I do not view it as an expense. So when politicians make a lot of promises about jobs and tax cuts, think about it. Go deep into that subject, because what they could be doing is crippling your ability to go to college and crippling your ability to get a job when you get out in a diverse sector.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to try to get to 2 more questions. We got word that we expected your day is packed. So next question, we're going to go to David Snyder. This is a question that's on a lot of young people's minds.
Hi, Mr. McAuliffe. Thanks for joining us today. As a political science major, I've been taught many times that there is a distinct difference between politics and government. You were a fundraiser for President Carter, a fundraiser for President Clinton, and chair of the DNC. You've had a successful career in politics. What can you tell us about your experience in government and whether or not your previous experience would hinder your ability to work across the aisle?
I think my experience has only helped me. I've had a long experience not only in politics but also in business, which I think is important. As I say, I've been involved in dozens of companies. I've tried some very exciting new 21st century. I've done renewable energy projects, electric cars, other issues, home building, as I say, banking. I've been traditional, I've been new. I've tried a lot of different things. Those are the experiences you want someone who's willing to take the risk to invest my own capital, my own money, invested in it to try and grow jobs. That's what you want. But I've been very active. I've spent majority of the last 20 years of my life helping candidates in politics. You should know I've done that as a volunteer. I've done it because I've been passionate about it. I haven't taken any pay. I've done it because I want to support the party and the candidates that I best believe will exemplify my dreams and visions of what I have for America. I've supported a lot of different candidates. I think it's very important that we have people who are actually in government service who've come from a business background. But, you know, one good model here in Virginia would be Mark Warner. In 2001, as you know, he ran for governor. He had been obviously involved in business. He had not been in government, but he brought a new, fresh approach. And right, my opponent is a Richmond insider. I'm trying to bring an outside approach, a very pro-business, mainstream, who will bring that business background, who has taken a lot of risks in life, who has tried some new and different things, like Mark Warner. And I'll be honest with you, Mark Warner was a very successful governor. He protected our AAA bond rating, as well as, you know, led to the largest investment in K through 12 in modern history in Virginia. And Mark and I have been very close. I like to joke with Mark, I was actually his first boss 33 years ago. He doesn't like to hear it because I'm a little younger than he is. But, you know, we have been great friends for, as I say, I guess now going on 33 years. But he brought a very pro-business, mainstream, working together approach, and that's what I would like to do also. But you want somebody in government who is actually worried and sweated out a few payrolls and understand those gigantic risks that you have to take and has learned by those experiences.
All right, thank you so much. I think we've got time for one more. So the next question comes from Meg.
Hi, Mr. McAuliffe.
Hi.
Going back to education funding, Virginia politicians on both sides of the aisle often argue that institutions of higher ed need to be more efficient with their money and keep tuition increases to a minimum. But this has led to increased class sizes, frozen professor salaries, and increased reliance on part-time faculty. While efficiency and low tuition increases are definitely good things, we worry that if you pursue these two goals at the expense of quality, we won't get a good education. So our goal is to be successful and competitive in graduate school or the job market. And as governor, how would you pursue efficiency while keeping quality your top priority?
Yeah, and I think that's important. We got to keep tuition low. We need to make sure that we're having efficiencies at our higher education institutions. One thing I've talked about is, let's just take community colleges for a second. 3 out of 5 of our higher ed students go to a community college. They need efficiencies. What they've consistently said to me is, Terry, give us some more autonomy. Let us make some decisions, and we will make some very smart decisions, and we can save taxpayer money and deliver. We can have more, professors and so forth if you give us some tools. And I consistently hear at the community college level that, one classroom, I think at Piedmont Virginia Community College, the president told me that he had to buy all the chairs from the Department of Prisons. It's a state requirement. But he said, Terry, if you gave us some autonomy, I could have bought all this new equipment much cheaper, much more efficiently, if you'd given me authority to do that. Well, that makes common sense to me, to give some more autonomy at the local level so that those institutions will make decisions that will save taxpayer money and do what we need to do to keep tuitions low. So as governor, I will make sure that we're bringing the efficiencies to our colleges and universities. And how do you do that? One of the most important things you can do will be the Board of Visitors appointments. And we do not need a governor bringing a social ideological agenda and appointing boards of visitors based on an ideology. I will appoint boards of visitors who will live and die for those institutions, and obviously take recommendations from the universities and colleges who will be best, and will bring a pragmatic, mainstream business approach to those colleges and universities so we can keep efficiencies, we can keep tuition low, because you're right, and there's not a place that, as I've traveled all throughout the Commonwealth, there's not a place I go that people are not worried about their children going to college and will they be able to afford it, and or a child has just graduated from college and there's no job and they have all this debt, and how are they going to pay that debt off? So these are big challenges. We have headwinds facing us in Virginia. As you've probably read in the newspaper yesterday, 5-6 years ago, we were the #1 state in the country to do business on CNBC. We dropped to 3 in the last 2 years, and then yesterday we were just tied for 5th. Now, those are challenges, and the reason we dropped was most importantly because of transportation. Anyone who lives in Virginia and travels around the roads, especially in Northern Virginia or in Hampton Roads, know how difficult it is to travel throughout the Commonwealth. It is gridlock. We're stuck in traffic 67 hours a year in Northern Virginia, close to 35 hours a year, 40 hours a year down in Hampton Roads. We waste $1.7 billion. That's why I supported Governor McDonald on the transportation compromise. Be clear, my opponent tried to stop it at each and every turn. In fact, he said he would actually kill the Silver Line Metro after it was halfway completed. We've got to grow Virginia. We can't have a governor bringing a social ideological agenda. We cannot be suing, as my opponent did, the University of Virginia on sciences because he disagrees with the sciences of a professor. We cannot be issuing letters to our colleges and universities rolling back protections against discrimination based upon sexual orientation, which is what my opponent did. We cannot be leading the effort to shut down women's health centers. We cannot be doing those things. We need to be making Virginia open and welcoming to everyone. We've got to grow and diversify. I want to bring those cyber warriors from Silicon Valley to Virginia. You cannot do it when you put walls up based upon social ideological. Let's be open. Let's be welcoming. Let's be doing those STEM courses earlier. Let's keep tuition low. Let's be bringing nanoscience, biolife sciences, all these new technologies. Let's bring them to Virginia. Let's have a modern, efficient transportation system. That's why I'm running for governor. We got big challenges, and I look forward. I need your vote. Please go to terrymcauliffe.com It's an important election, and I promise you, you help me, no one will work harder when I'm governor, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I say sleep's overrated, sleep when you're dead. That's what I'll do as governor working for you. Thank you. Great.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you very much for taking the time and spending it with us. We've got word that you've got to go. We apologize for getting started late again and the technical difficulties, but we appreciate this time and appreciate the campaign as it continues to move forward. So thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Great to be with you. Thanks, everybody.
You bet. All right. Well, just for everybody else, I'm happy to let you know that the untechnical, or the right version will be up on our website, so you can go back and watch both the Attorney General's answers and Mr. McAuliffe's answers. So we'll have that posted right on the front page of our website. We'll apologize again for technical difficulties. We are going to do this again. I was very fascinated for the numbers of viewers that we were able to attract. I'm fascinated for them to actually be able to take the questions on this kind of forum. It's a great way to make sure young people are engaged in the debate about higher education, the economy. It's a great way to ensure that more technology is used in Virginia election. So with that, I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate all 6 of our members and the students for taking part in this dialogue. Hopefully, if we get lucky, we'll be able to do it again without the technical glitches sometime before the campaign, because new issues always come up and as we learn more about the candidates and what their plans are, I'm sure we'll have more questions. So that being said, I will go ahead and sign off and say thank you to everybody, and I'll actually do one last thing just to make sure that I'm just as good as the candidates in this. We'll pitch our website. More if you want more information about Virginia21, if you're a student, about how you can get involved with some of our efforts to interact with candidates for governor, local elected officials, the state delegates and state senate, get involved in any of Virginia21's leadership programs, just go to www.virginia21.org. You can follow us on Twitter at Virginia21. Virginia's all spelled out, and like us on Facebook. So that being said, thanks again, and hope to see you soon.